Good evening, everyone. My name is Jimmy Betancourt, and I'm going to talk about the human brain. So as you see here, we have the human brain. It's divided into parts. So we have here the right hemisphere and also the left hemisphere. So I'm going to talk about or explain a little bit the left hemisphere. So it's what the sequence, logical areas, fact, the language, the raciocinium, part of verbal of the human being. And then right hemisphere is where the creativity, arts, feelings, rhythms. So that's why some people that studying some music or maybe art, they work every single day in this area so they can improve, they can help to develop this part of hemisphere and they can be better every time. This is about the hemisphere and I'm going to talk about lobes too. When we are talking about the lobes, so we have here the frontal lobes. This help to solving the problems and personality, language production, planification. This is the part the lobe. And we have also here the occipital lobe. It's work in the part of the back of the head, the brain is a part here. So this is the visual, okay? So it's a part where you can see everything that maybe animals, plants, human, etc. So parietal lobe is in the middle of the brain. It's the part when you can develop or it's part of the process that you can writing or maybe reading. So you practice and this part of the brain work to help to improve sense. Also the sense, it's like the feeling you touch and maybe taste, smell. This is the part that the brain it's work. And we have temporal lobe is here. See, is in two hemispheres, the temporal lobe. So the temporal lobe is help the hearing, the learning, the memory. So that's why it's important when you don't understand with this part of the here, you can try with these sides and you can improve your process learning. So that's why it's important because the temporal lobe it's work in the part of the brain. Okay, we have to the brain stem. The brain stem is this part, see? And the brain stem, it's this is a part automatic about the body, the breathing and the digestion, you know. So temperature, this is the process of the body that work natural in the human. This is the part. And we have to the cerebellum. This is the part. And the cerebellum is the coordination about, the equilibrium. So balance when you are running, you can go up or maybe down or maybe the sides, and you can keep your equilibrium and you don't fall easily when you are walking or running. So this help to keep straight.
Language areas in the brain. The human brain is a complex and fascinating organ which works constantly all time, even when we are sleeping. The human brain has different areas which are activated during the process learning of a language. These areas are located in the left hemisphere in the brain. These areas are the broadcast area. This is responsible for the motor function that allows us to formulate syllables with our mouths, coordinate the movements to articulate sounds and words. Since damage to this area results in impairment of this function without affecting the ability of to understand language. The primary motor cortex involved in involuntary phonological movement to articulate linguistic sounds and words. Movement include articulation, breathing, and controlling or airflow. The next one is the arcuate fascicles. Synchronized language comprehension and production. Supramarginal gyros involved in phonological processing in verbal working memory. The primal and visual cortex support the perception, understanding, and production of linguistic input and graphic morphemes through reading and writing. Angular gyrus produce the sensorial models of sounds and words associated with multiple types of language-related information. The Wernicke's area. This is responsible for understanding of language, since damage of this area does not impair the ability to vocalize, but results in complete nonsense being spoken. And finally is the primary auditory cortex. It is responsible for perceiving, negotiation, and processing sounds.
Neurolinguistic basis of language comprehension. I'm going to focus on language perception. It determined, in this case, that the function associated with language processing, considering the reading and oral means. This model attempted to explain the cognition of processes and neuronal networks because it is involved in the language comprehension and production. But as I mentioned, I'm going to focus on language comprehension. In this case, it requires a lateral activation. These areas, including the primary auditory. The oral perception, a good point, because it focuses on the cognitive system and analyze the comprehend the words, including the auditory, the phonetic, and the lexical phonological memory. The oral language perception has a system, in this case, the oral word, that it has 3 steps: the auditory analysis, the lexical phonological, and the lexical semantical. Otherwise, the reading language perception requires to understand the grapheme phoneme that it has to assign the meaning. And the reading language perception is a process that in this case involves the reading language comprehension, including the visual analysis and lexical visual analysis in order to understand the words. Reading aloud involves the additional system, such as the lexical, cognitive. Finally, in the reading language perception, we have this other process that is a reading word that it focuses in this part of the cerebral neurons here, the reading word, the visual analysis, the lexical visual, the lexical semantical, the lexical phonological, that is part of the lexical visual, the phonography, and the phonological semantical.
Neurolinguistic basis on language production. In this process are involved 2 areas. The Broca's areas, which is associated with language production, while Wernicke's area is associated with language comprehension, that is in charge of receive, analyze, recognize, and understand information. That is called Wernicke's area. Broca's areas is therefore language production to produce a spoken language. How does it do it? It's like a programming system that has all different programs to correspond to the motor cortex in the precentral gyrus that allows for our body to move. Our language production requires cognitive system, the lexical semantical memory, the lexical phonological memory, the phonological articulatory system, and organs. Think about complex movement as language to occur, for example. It's needed the coordination of number of different parts in our body. So first, when we're going to talk, the lungs push air through the trachea and then to the larynx in our voice box, where those vocal cords will narrow or thicken to produce then with the tongue the language. So all the motor parts associated with language activate since Wernicke's area speaks to Broca's areas and then
to fire off in a particular patterned way. So the motor cortex associated within the lips, the tongue, the pharynx, and the larynx and the trachea to produce the oral language.